Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
Hikers are getting attacked on hiking trails, and people are stumbling into marijuana grow operations that are booby-trapped or guarded or stuff like that. And
some of the biggest walleyes of the year are caught during the deer hunting season.
You don't want to be in a gunfight over something that isn't life or death.
I fish, I hunt, and always will. Broadcasting from the Eau Claire Outdoors Studios. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. We're not just a radio show anymore. This is Sporting Journal Radio. That's right, I'm Brett Amundsen. Thanks for tuning in on the network, by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe by watching this on YouTube. We got a great show this week for you. That's Dan Amundsen over there. Dan?
Hey.
What's happening?
Not much.
David's in a combine today. I'm kind of surprised because it's kind of wet out there, but...
Hey, they're rushing to get done.
Had a little bit of a weather change late in the week this week. Temps a little bit cooler, some northwest winds that brought some migrating waterfowl down. That got the deer moving a little bit, but got things a little more soggy once again, which is nice because we had some dry sloughs, so fill those sloughs in a little bit. Maybe we'll keep some of those ducks and geese around a little longer.
You'd like to think, but we need some corn out too. You know, there's I drove around the other day and there's pockets of corn out and the geese and ducks know it. And we can't hunt most of those pockets of corn right now, so we need our corn to come out so we can hunt them because all of the birds are in there.
Well, that corn is also hampering pheasant hunting efforts. I'll talk about my pheasant opener weekend experience. In fact, we did a really cool story for Prairie Sportsman that'll air in the new season. We'll tell you more about that in just a little bit. Kevin Michalowski is going to join us. He's with Delta Defense. We talked to him at the AGLOW conference in Bemidji this year. He's got some interesting things to say. You're going to want to listen. We'll talk to him coming up in just a little bit. Joe Henry will also talk about the Rainy River fishing right now, what it's like, and also start talking a little bit about winter fishing up at Lake of the Woods, and then what it takes to get up to the northwest angle, and how things might be a little bit different in the winter than they are during the open water season. All that coming up. But first, Dan, who are this week's sponsors?
Live Target. Match the hatch at livetargetlures.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this fall or winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Book a trip to Devil's Lake. Fish out of a snow bear this winter. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. And Prairie Sportsman, like Brett said, we filmed a cool story for him. You can watch that anytime. Well, not anytime yet. You can watch the news. Let's start that over. You can watch old episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. But you can watch what we filmed last weekend during the upcoming season. Check your
The words
TV
are tough.
guide for your local air times.
While you're on YouTube, check out the Fish Hunt Forever channel, and we may have a snow goose hunt on there.
Yeah, and actually, before we do that, you interrupted me. Let's go back. Also, the one thing I was going to plug is if you're hunting, it's MEA weekend. If you're hunting around the I cannot talk today.
Well, you sure you want me to let you? Sure you want me to stop and let you talk?
Yeah, the Lac Parle area, come out to the Milan Legion on Saturday and get some steaks. Support the Milan Fire Department, 5 to 9 Saturday. So do that. Big old steak, grab a beer. It's a good time. I know we'll have some friends there, so head on out that way.
You got a little graphic for it, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I'm so distracted right now because I can't speak. There it is, October 21st. Go do that.
All right, so we went up to Saskatchewan. We filmed a bunch of videos. You can see 3 of them on the YouTube channel, maybe 4 by the time this airs.
We're hoping for Sunday the 22nd.
Okay.
So
Sunday night.
Yeah.
Watch for a new one. And, of course, make sure you check out this channel, Prairie Sportsman, and the Tazen TV, Tazen Lake Lodge YouTube channel while you're on there. A couple of notes coming out of the DNR, various DNR and state game agencies. North Dakota, they started stocking sturgeon in the Pembina River. I think that's, if I remember correctly, that's the first time that they've done that. It's the first time in North Dakota Game and Fish Department's history they released 1,006 to 9-inch lake sturgeon raised in the Valley City National Fish Hatchery into the Pembina River to reestablish a population of fish that can live long and grow large. This story courtesy of K-Fire TV. So that's kind of cool. Get some more sturgeon in the Red River system up there in the Pembina River. And then also on the Minnesota side, for deer hunters getting ready to deer hunt for the gun season, November 4th, they gave a kind of a report in the southern part of Minnesota. They think that hunters should have success. The numbers are pretty good in the south. In the central, they say deer populations remain robust and highly productive in central Minnesota, and deer also fared well over the winter. That's my DNR voice.
I love a robust deer population.
Right. Northeast, no surprise here. Deer populations in many northern areas of Minnesota are still struggling to recover following back-to-back severe winters, and wolves and bears.
Yes, it's really winter.
They left that part out of the story.
Funny.
But winters, I mean, weather still is going to dictate your wildlife populations.
Yeah, because they can't run away from a wolf in the snow.
Predators, there's a lot of predators up there too. Wolves and black bears obviously have an effect. In the Northwest, deer populations are mostly stable, which, they had rough winters up there too.
You know what
What's
they
the
don't
difference?
have?
Not as many wolves.
Not as many.
Not as many wolves. All right, so you can read the full deer report, DNR News, what Minnesota deer hunters can expect this season at sportingjournalradio.com. What else? Oh, Pheasant Open this past weekend. We filmed a really cool event with Warriors and Walleyes Outdoors. It's an organization that hosts these veterans events. They've been doing it up at Lake of the Woods at Arneson's for a number of years. We filmed that for Prairie Sportsman a couple of years ago. Lance Peterson told me about this event where he's going to bring Purple Heart recipients out, pheasant hunting and also walleye fishing. And I think we've got just a short little teaser we'll play here for you right now.
On January 14th, 1969, I had a bad day. And that day I was on a convoy, and our convoy was ambushed, and I was taken a prisoner of war.
Okay, so there is a little snippet. You'll see the full video coming on the new season of Prairie Sportsman. We took him pheasant. In fact, I filmed him pheasant hunting, and Dan, you filmed him fishing.
Yep, it was a good time out in western Minnesota.
That was Gary.
Yep.
Gary was a prisoner of war for 4 years.
4 years, yeah. He tells people that, like, if he goes and speaks at a school, he says, at a high school, he says, talking to freshmen, by the time, the day you walk through the door of this school to the day you graduate, that's how long he was a prisoner of war.
That's amazing.
I mean, what a way to put it in perspective. Like, you hear 4 years, 4 years, whatever. The older you get, it goes by fast. But I can guarantee you it didn't go by fast for Gary.
No, an amazing story. And there were a number of other, we talked to guys that were shot down in helicopters. And then there were some other local law enforcement that have been through some hard times lately that were there as well too. So we'll have that story for you coming up on the new season of Prairie Sportsman starting in January. And then Sunday, I had a chance to get out just for a little bit, did a little bit of walking with Tiny, shot a couple of birds, only saw a handful of birds, and I think a lot of that's due to the fact that there's still a lot of corn standing. It's starting to come out. A lot of the beans are out, but there was still standing beans next to where I hunted, and then a lot of standing corn as well too. And we had an interesting couple of people come to town. Dan, a friend of ours, Tony Crotty, met this guy hunting in northern Minnesota, and it was Austin and his girlfriend Coda. They're from down in southern Mississippi, southern Louisiana, and they're traveling up to the Canadian border, and they're going to follow the migration all the way down. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. What are you guys going to be out here for a couple of weeks? He goes, well, we're hoping to be back by, January 31st or so, something like that. And that's definitely not a Louisiana accent. I just gave him right there. But so they're going to be on the road for a long time. They're young. They want to do it while they can. And they'd never shot a pheasant before. So I actually took them, Austin and Coda, out pheasant hunting. And Coda shot her first pheasant ever right here. Tiny puts this bird up right there and flushes it right back at us. They both shoot at it. Coda knocks it down. In that video right there. So they got to have their first pheasant hunting experience. There they are with their dog, Ellie Mae.
Glad you remembered that.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It took me a minute, but they had their dog. So that was the first pheasant retrieve for Ellie Mae right there. So they got to experience their first pheasant hunting experience here. And it was cool to meet them. So you guys, if you're watching, have fun on the rest of your trip. Be safe, good luck, and all that stuff. All right, we have got Kevin Michalowski coming up. We talked to him at the AGLOW conference in Bemidji. He's with Delta Defense and USCCA. What does that stand for? We'll tell you when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio. 852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Haybale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Haybale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today. All right, welcome to Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Brett Amundsen. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube. Maybe you're listening on the radio network or downloading the podcast. Thank you very much. We're at the AGLOW conference in Bemidji, and our guest now is Kevin Michalowski. Kevin, how you doing?
Great. Happy to be here. This is my 30th year with AGLOW.
30. Wow.
Yeah, 1993. I was so young back then.
Well, this is our third year, and but I already feel like we're so much part of the family. I feel like we've been here for longer than just 3 years.
And that's one of the wonderful things about this organization is that, and quite frankly, why I keep coming back is when I started, everybody was so helpful and gave me a leg up, and it was like there was no competition. They just wanted me to succeed as well, and that's what I think Great Lakes Outdoor Writers does for everyone who's a member.
Yeah, it's been great for us, and I've always felt that no matter who I talk to, they're willing to help me out if I need something, and we've always tried to do our best to try to help out. It's a great organization of giving of writers and creators and podcasters, TV guys, but along with the destinations and the brands, like a couple of the sponsors that we got on the show right now are people we've met through AGLOW.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's over the past 30 years, it's changed immensely.
I bet.
I was a newspaper guy. I was
really?
hammering out columns for a daily newspaper in South Dakota when I joined AGLOW for the first time. And now that newspaper is by and large gone. It's gobbled up. There's probably kids out there saying, "What's a newspaper?"
Yeah, right.
Things
What
like
paper
that.
was it?
It was the Aberdeen American News. It was part of the Knight Ridder chain at the time, and I was the outdoor writer there for about 5 years. Full-time hunting and fishing, having a great time. It was just
I like
wonderful.
Wisconsin, but why would you leave Aberdeen?
Yeah, well, because I was making about $28,000 a year, and I was trying to raise kids. So it was the newspaper industry was tough, and quite honestly, as I learned more and more, and I met more and more people from AGLOW, there's a million ways to make money in the outdoor community, in the firearms community, and I just kept looking at different stuff that I like to do and went and did it. So.
See, I went from Wisconsin to North Dakota because I needed to make more money than I was making.
There you go.
At the time, doing radio.
Yeah.
Been very similar, and radio has changed quite a bit, and obviously we're very thankful for having this show on a bunch of radio stations, but we finally had to break down, like it wasn't a podcast for a long time. It was strictly a radio show, 1 hour outdoor show on a number of stations, and podcasts grew in popularity so much that we finally had to turn it into a radio show that you could listen to as a podcast, and now we try to make it more of a podcast format, but still apply it to radio. So it's a bit of a hybrid for us.
Yeah, we got to be flexible, don't we?
You have to. You have to evolve. You constantly, whether you're in the outdoor industry or any sort of media industry now, you just constantly have to evolve, which isn't always easy to do.
Yeah.
But in the digital age, the opportunities are endless, and there's really a lot of opportunities out there if you really apply yourself and try hard. And if you want to make it in the outdoor industry, you can do it. It's busy.
Yeah.
But you can do it, and obviously a group like this can really help somebody out.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time that no matter what you do and where you're going to do it, you just have to go to work every day and put in the work. You have to do the work. It's not none of this, whether you decide you're going to open a distillery or whether you decide you're going to, be an outdoor podcaster. If you're not willing to really work at it, there's going to be somebody else who does, and people who do the work make the money.
Yeah, it was hard work this morning. Like, we were slaving away in the boat.
Yeah, fishing, you got to get up early. You know, the waves are moving around. I mean, you probably had to stretch a little bit before you got out there. You don't want to pull anything, you know, so.
No, it's been great. You know, so we're in Bemidji, so we fished Lake Bemidji today, and we were in Branson last year. We got to fish Table Rock, and we were in Gaylord, Michigan the year before that, and we got to go out and experience some of the outdoor opportunities. And we've done a lot of the AGLOW media camps. We've gone to Niagara River, and just the ability to go see new places, hunt and fish all over the, you know, all over the North America, really, for that matter, or all over the U.S. And then meet interesting people, and, you know, having the ability to meet you and what you do has always been kind of interesting. I've wanted to have you on the podcast for a long time, because I think what you talk about is important. You know, we talk a lot about hunting and fishing here on this show, but what ties along closely, you know, along the same vein is, you know, what you talk about a lot, and that can be, you know, self-defense, or, you know, handguns, or concealed carry, permit to carry, things like that. Tell me what you do and who you do it for, and your background in law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm the executive editor of Concealed Carry Magazine, and that is the national publication arm of the United States Concealed Carry Association. And our overall company is called Delta Defense. Delta Defense is the operating arm of the USCCA, so how that all works together for organizational purposes. I'm actually an employee of Delta Defense, and I'm serving the United States Concealed Carry Association. And truthfully, what we do is we provide people training and education for what to do before, during, or after any sort of self-defense incident. And the reason I'm here at the Great Lakes Outdoor Writers event is I have for years been trying to connect folks in the outdoor community with the idea that they need to be ready to protect themselves, not just home defense or out in the field or things like that, but just at all times. It's part of their responsibility. And I was a cop for 17 years. I just retired about 6 months ago. And some of the things, like one of the biggest meth cases we had in our little rural county in central Wisconsin, started with a guy walking out into his back 40 and seeing a dead deer. Somebody had shot a deer, poached it, and he got mad, and he called the game warden. And the game warden came out, looked at the site, and saw four-wheeler tracks headed down toward a little shack. And God bless the game warden. Rather than charging in there and going to write somebody a ticket for poaching deer, he sat on the hillside and he watched with binoculars for a few minutes, and he saw this meth cooking operation with a bunch of guys in there with guns and cooking up meth, and it turned into a great big drug bust. And that really drove home this idea that, you know, hunters and fishermen for sure are typically not armed or anything like that, but hunters think, well, I'm carrying my rifle out in the woods, I'll be fine. You know, if something goes wrong, I'll be okay. But people don't understand how much time when you're out there hunting that you don't actually have a loaded gun with you and under your direct control and ready to protect yourself with, and things like that. And a lot of bad things are happening out in the woods. Hikers are getting attacked on hiking trails, and people are stumbling into marijuana grow operations that are booby-trapped or guarded or stuff like that. And you know, meth is prevalent all over the place. It's just happening. People are cooking it everywhere, and you never know who you're going to run into or what's going to happen. And you know, you've got thousands of dollars worth of outdoor gear that bad guys know they can sell somewhere for something. And actually at an AGLOW conference several years ago, we had a guy who got robbed of all of his video equipment at the boat ramp. He went out, parked the boat, happened to have the TV sticker on the side for his show on the side of his truck, and he wasn't gone 3 hours. By the time he got back, the windows were smashed out of the truck, every single thing was gone. And it just proves to people that as long as bad guys got cars, they can go anywhere. You got to be ready, and it may not happen. The odds are really high, or the odds are really low, but the stakes are really high.
That's why I don't have my trailer wrapped.
Right.
I don't. It's like an invitation. Come take my stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm probably gonna have a wrapped truck, and I'm trying to decide how I want to lock stuff in there, or just not ever keep anything in the truck. You know,
keep stuff of value
or whatever. But that's scary. There's nothing more that drives me crazy than people that steal stuff. Like, absolutely drives me bonkers. Just go get a job, buy your own stuff. Come on.
Well, that is their job. They steal stuff, you know, for a living.
Gosh, it drives me nuts. Well, it is important, and you know, we're out in the middle of nowhere a lot of times when you're hunting, and you think you're out there just enjoying nature and life and it's peaceful and you're relaxed. You know, something like that could easily take you off guard while you're out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we talk about too, is you are your own first responder when you're out in the field, when you're out on the water, whatever it is you're going to do. And you know, we brought stuff for the auction that we're gonna put on the auction here at the AGLOW conference. We brought first aid kits. You are much more likely to need to provide first aid to yourself in an outdoor setting. Maybe you cut yourself with a broadhead or your knife or something like that, than you are to be involved in a deadly incident. But we want people to start thinking about being prepared and being prepared for that. And no matter where you go nowadays, I don't know why the Wisconsin DNR has denied for so many years that there were mountain lions in Wisconsin, but they're out there. And you know what? They can attack your pets, or they can attack your kids, or they can attack you. And how are you going to protect yourself? I'm an advocate for firearms, but I don't think that that's where you have to start. You just have to start with the mindset that I'm going to do something to protect myself. If that's a can of bear spray, if that's a decent plan for escape, if that's carrying a firearm, great, I want you to do that. And I want
to the gun show.
There you go. And I want you to be
in the face.
I want you to be prepared for that and have a plan.
Yeah.
And once you start thinking about that, then you start understanding how important it is to take care of yourself and the people you love.
One thing I really wanted to make sure we talk about is somebody was asking me about Delta Defense and USCCA and membership and just what you get out of it. And I said, you know, I'm actually not a member yet. I've been looking into it a lot, but I get the emails, and it's like a lot of times the emails are either full of information about what to do in a certain situation, or deals on products, things like that, or what you're going to get from your membership. But I think one of the most important things that you get is nobody ever wants, if you're carrying, and I carry, nobody ever wants to ever use it.
Right.
Nobody ever wants to be in that situation. You just want to have it so if something happens, you have the ability to protect yourself. Nobody ever wants to be in that situation. But if you are in that situation, there's advice and there's ways that you will help a member if they're in that situation.
Absolutely, and you're right. Nobody wants to be in that situation. I don't want anyone in that situation. I don't want anyone to have to pull out their gun and use it, but the time might come. And like I said earlier, that we teach people what to do before, during, and after an incident. So the education and training is of utmost importance, because that training and education, you know what the laws are and you know what you can and can't do. That starts building your legal defense case even before anything happens, because you've done everything correctly. So the most important thing is that you get good training and you know what to do and what not to do. The USCCA also provides self-defense liability insurance to make sure that you get the best possible legal representation following this incident. And there's different payments, you know, for different items. We pay for things like bail and get an attorney. We have an attorney network with attorneys all across the country, and we cover both civil litigation and criminal litigation and things like that. But if you end up being involved in a shooting, and for whatever reason, the evidence might be a little bit sketchy, and the responding officers, sheriff's department, police, whatever, decide that, you know what, we're going to look much more closely at this, we're going to investigate, then you want to have a lawyer and you want to have one immediately.
Right.
And the USCCA helps with that when we do that. And again, the training and education portion of this, leading up to it, yep, did everything right. So now I have less to worry about on the legal side. There's still going to be some, and it's still going to be in 5 figures. And if you don't have that in the bank, you want to make sure that you have that self-defense liability insurance.
You mentioned something to me that you've talked to a number of people that have been involved in an incident, and what did they all tell you?
Every single person says they wish they would have done something differently. They wish they didn't have to defend themselves. Long story short, they wish they wouldn't have to defend themselves. Because I tell people all the time that self-defense incident might last 5 seconds. The aftermath of that is, you know, it's going to be months of investigation and years of legal wrangling. And then you also have, if you shot somebody, even if you did it right, the act of shooting someone in self-defense makes you question what else could I have done? So we teach people to avoid conflict and get out of there if they can. Just run, just bail out. But if they can't and they have to defend themselves, we want to make sure they did it effectively and they're protected legally, that they have this, we call it the self-defense shield at USCCA. They have the self-defense liability insurance to help them through this, because it's going to be a long time and it's going to be a pain in the butt.
I mean, even if you do everything right and you literally, it was a life or death situation, and you end up using your firearm against somebody, you have to live with doing that. Even if you did it for self-preservation, you still shot somebody or whatever. Yeah, and every single person we've spoken to, every single person I've talked to who has survived a deadly force incident has been like, man, I wish it would have been different. Yeah. I wish I could have done something else, but I just couldn't. And I feel for them, but it's just one of those things that people don't think about the aftermath. They think, I've got a gun, I know how to use it, I'm going to be okay. Well, you might be okay physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, all of this stuff comes into play afterwards. And a lot of my classes, I talk about this stuff. People walk out of there thinking, maybe I won't get a gun, and I don't want them to do that. I want them to stay alive. I want them to be able to defend themselves, but I want them to know they did the right thing and they got the right training, and it's going to be okay. Well, and I think it's important that people just understand what gun, particularly for people that weren't raised around them. I grew up with guns my entire life, primarily hunting, shotguns and rifles. But I was taught at an early age, and I had firearm hunter certification at age 11. Yeah. So at an early age, you're taught that a gun can kill. Like you learn what a gun can actually do, and it's not something to take lightly. So for people, especially during COVID, maybe they're going out to buy a handgun for self-defense or whatever the case may be, or even a shotgun or whatever. It's important for those people that didn't have the growing up around firearms to understand what guns are capable of.
Yeah, and more importantly too, understand what their state laws are, the rules that are governing them, because there's a whole lot of people, I have heard it so many times over the 11 years I've been with the USCCA, if somebody's at my house, I'm going to shoot him and drag him through the door. Well, you know what? Then you're going to get arrested for shooting them, and you're going to get charged with tampering with evidence, or maybe moving a corpse or something like that. All sorts of things. There's all sorts of just bad information out there.
You'll be alive, but you'll be in jail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I ask people, what do they want to risk everything they have for? Let them steal your bike. But if they're going to hurt you or your family, then you got to put a stop to that. But what I say all the time is it's self-defense, it's not stuff defense. So make sure that no matter how angry you get about having your stuff stolen, that you're not using deadly force to prevent that. You can get stuff back. You don't want to be in a gunfight over something that isn't life or death.
When somebody is involved in an incident and they have the liability insurance, obviously there's legal defense, but is there care for mental health at that?
Yeah, there's opportunities for that. It's all laid out in our member services agreement. We have a 24-hour-a-day hotline that people can call to get our crisis hotline, to make sure that they're, first of all, we get the ball rolling and make sure that they're protected legally. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. We're working with a suicide prevention group and things like that. So yes, absolutely, we make sure we touch on all of that stuff.
I think there's a big part of the world, or particularly America, that thinks because somebody wants to carry, that they're this big bad Wild West, macho man from America, all about guns, America, and that they're ready to pull the trigger, anytime somebody looks at them funny. What kind of message can we tell those people that we're not out there wanting to use that gun? It's literally just to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the exact message is we have 790,000 members currently, in the USCCA. None of them are looking for a fight. All of them want to be left alone, to the point where if, now they finally have to do something, and we use the legal terminology, are you facing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. If you're not, your gun stays in the holster. If you are, your gun comes out of the holster, you do what you need to do, and then you get an attorney. And that's the way it has to work. Nobody wants to go through this.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to deal with this for the rest of their life, and that's exactly what happens. You're right, but it is a huge responsibility. Along with that right, that Second Amendment right doesn't absolve you of the responsibility of doing the right thing.
What did you guys think of what happened in New Mexico recently?
It's just been crazy. Wow. And I don't know when this is going to air, or when it's going to change between the time you and I talk about this right now and what's happening, and when this airs. The governor of New Mexico restricted concealed and open carry in the county surrounding Albuquerque and all state lands around the state. And that is just an incredible overreach. I understand she was upset. I understand that children got killed, and that is terrible. That is a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. The loss of freedom is also a horrible thing. And we have rights, and with those rights come responsibilities, and she needs to understand that her decree did nothing to the bad guys.
Right.
All of those bad guys are still going to be carrying their guns for 30 days, and now the good law-abiding citizens who followed that law, which has since, there's an injunction in place, and they're not carrying that out anymore. But had it been left to stand, all of the good guys who were following laws would have given up their guns and been defenseless. And defenseless citizens, that just makes criminals more bold. There's no two ways about that. There's no discussion. The criminals weren't going to give up their guns.
And you could argue that might make more people criminals.
Yeah, because there's going to be some who don't give up their guns.
Right.
And they're law-abiding citizens right up to the point that now we got this crazy law in place. And the worst part about it is seeing one politician do it by decree and just say, here, I'm the boss, you have to do what I say.
Is that going to create more instances of more leaders and politicians doing that?
Yeah, well, I hope not. I hope what it did is wake up a bunch of people to this idea that we participate in our own government, and we need to step up, say something, vote, and be the voice of reason. I mean, honestly, the governor of New Mexico was being unreasonable, and the rest of us were the voice of reason and said, no, you can't do this.
Where do we learn more about Delta Defense and USCCA, and how do we get a membership?
Oh, it's super easy. USCCA.com, and it starts right there. And even if you don't join USCCA the minute you log on to the website, there are still hundreds of items of free information that will help you get started on creating a personal defense plan, or helping you decide which gun you might want to carry or something like that. And we're all over the social media sites, on the line, as the kids say, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all over the place. Just search for USCCA.
All right, Kevin Michalowski, thanks for the time today.
I'm glad to talk to you, Brett. Thanks.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County?
Yep, and I'm gonna fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Otter Tail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Otter Tail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to OtterTailLakesCountry.com. Live Target, the leader in Match the Hatch, is back with new lures that also match the action. Introducing the Live Craw. The Live Craw is irresistible to bass, walleye, and other freshwater species. FTech's winner, the Ultimate Frog, looks and acts just like a swimming frog. With an exposed ultra-point mustad hook and replaceable legs, the Ultimate Frog has 2 styles, 2 sizes, and 8 colors. And iCast and FTech's winner, the Live Shrimp, mimics a fleeing shrimp for saltwater anglers. Coming soon from Live Target. Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Now it's time to talk to Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism, and everybody's got hunting on the brain, particularly once the deer hunting season starts. I feel like that's when everything really gets good. Waterfowl tends to get really good. Pheasant hunting gets really good. And of course, fishing gets really good that time of year too. And there's been some really nice fish caught lately for those that are out there in boats. And Joe Henry, there was a big tournament on the Rainy River recently, wasn't there?
There was a real big tournament, yeah. The Chili Bowl, and the Chili Bowl has been a kind of a long-standing tournament for a number of years anyway, up at Borderview Lodge on the Rainy River. And they had 75 boats in the tournament, and some nice fish caught. I mean, they went out and caught a lot of fish, caught them all different ways. Some got them jigging, but I'll tell you, a lot of people got them trolling crankbaits and covering water. It just goes to show though that there's fish in the river, but it's not the big run yet. And, everybody's kind of waiting, and every year's a little different. How big is the run going to be? How big a fish from the lake slide into that river for the fall? But I will tell you this, Brett, it's really funny because you talk about hunting and, I'm a deer hunter too. And you have such a limited time to deer hunt. Yet I can tell you this, that some of the biggest fish of the year, some of the biggest walleyes of the year are caught during the deer hunting season. When you're talking about getting a 13 or 14 pound walleye in Lake of the Woods or the Rainy River, oftentimes at very end of October or the first couple of weeks of November, just before ice up, but I tell you, that's when those fish are on the prowl.
And I don't really gun hunt much anymore, and I don't really pheasant hunt during the gun deer season because I try to stay out of the woods and the fields when there's a bunch of guns walking around. I might bow hunt a little bit during that time, but if the weather is nice, man, what a great time to go fishing, Joe. It's fall fishing season. Fishing can be really good, but I know a lot of anglers they've got hunting on their brain right now, and then they're going to start changing gears to ice fishing here very, very soon.
They are. And I mean, if you haven't made your plans, boy, I tell you, if you want a certain resort or certain dates, I would call now and make a reservation for ice fishing. But I'll tell you this, things really start up at Lake of the Woods oftentimes the end of November. If you spear for pike, some of those back bays get frozen over, in November. And that can be some of the best times to go out and spear pike. Now, as far as the ice fishing goes, Mother Nature always dictates. Our resorts and outfitters will be on top of the safety part of the ice fishing scenario, of course. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to, getting out there and getting that fish house out there, day houses on average get out about December 10th. And then on average, sleeper houses normally get out just after Christmas. Normally, ice roads are opened up to, SUVs and light pickups just right around that Christmas time frame too. Again, that can be earlier. It can be a little bit later. Just depends upon the year.
I was just watching our layout boat hunt that we filmed for Prairie Sportsman last year. And first of all, it's got me excited. We're going back up there to do some layout boat duck hunting here in just another week and a half or so, something like that, 2 weeks. And we'll probably do some fishing, I'm sure, while we were up there. But as I was watching that one, I talked about traveling to the Northwest Angle. And that was the first time I'd driven up to the Northwest Angle through Manitoba. In the past, I'd gone probably the two most unique ways you can get to the Angle, Joe. We took snowmobiles up that one year, and then that year that they did the ice road, we drove up on the ice all the way up there.
Wasn't that cool? I mean, it's funny because for people that aren't real familiar with the Northwest Angle, it's that little tip of Minnesota that sticks up into Canada, and to drive there by land, you actually go 40 miles through Manitoba and then re-enter back into the United States at an unmanned border. So when you get up there, of course, you check in on an iPad because it's an unmanned border. And when you depart the Angle, you call Canadian Customs and get clearance with them. And it's just kind of a neat area. Northernmost point of the contiguous U.S. is where the 14,552 islands begin. And Brett, what you're talking about is if you stay on the lake, you can avoid customs altogether because you're staying in Minnesota the whole way. So you mentioned snowmobile. You know what? There's a 42-mile groom staked trailer, state and aid trail. And that's one way to get up there. Of course, there's a Lake of the Woods passenger service, which is a bombardier service in the winter that'll take you to your favorite Northwest Angle resort. You talked about the Northwest Angle Guest Ice Road that we had one year during the pandemic. And that was very unique. That was 38 miles, and it went up the Border Cut Trail. And of course, other people will, they'll just drive it around. And one thing about driving, when you drive up there, Brett, you got to stop in, there's a little town you're going to go through. and
Sprague.
Sprague, Manitoba, right? And when you go through Sprague, Carl and Kay's Fine Food, just a little, almost like a pole building, but little grocery store. But I'll tell you something. They got those little things, part of the adventure of going to the Angle. They got those little things you can't get in the States necessarily. Coffee crisp candy bars, English toffee. They got that Canadian rye bread, as they call it, which are made in the famous Winnipeg bakeries, almost like a cracked wheat. They got, what else? A variety of Canadian jams. And it's just kind of a neat little thing. It's like when in Rome, do as the Romans. And, you stop there and get a few snackies, either on the way up or maybe on the way back. But I just think it's kind of cool because it's part of that experience of traveling through Canada when you go to the Angle.
Just don't make me get ketchup chips.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you, they have different kind of chips, too. They got ketchup chips. They got red pepper sour cream. They got everything chips. I mean, it's just a whole different deal. It's crazy, isn't it? It's just over the border, but there's so many things that are different.
Well, you start dealing, I think, with different laws and trademarks and things like that. You'll see a lot of very similar products that are in the States, but they'll have a completely different name. Maybe same ownership, but it'll have a different name and just a little bit of a different packaging. And I used to get, Old Dutch made this, what was it, party mix or something like that. And I used to get it all the time here in the States. And maybe you can still get it in places, but I don't see it anymore where I live until I go to Canada. And then I see it everywhere. So I always stock up on that. And Old Dutch is big up there. And yeah, ketchup chips. I don't
So
get
gross.
it.
They're disgusting.
What else? They have all dressed.
Yeah, those also suck. Overrated.
Were
Not a
there
fan.
any Canadian chips you did like?
There's a few. Okay, so there was one. What was it? Black pepper vinegar.
Those were good.
It's like a kettle chip. Those are really good. They've got bacon chips. Those
Bacon
are really
ones
good.
were solid.
They have they have creamy dill pickle, which is better than the regular dill pickle.
I don't like it.
There's a ton of every time we go to Canada, I go through and on my Snapchat rank out candy bars and different chips that I find. And the A&W root beer is so much better than American A&W root beer.
It is, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
How about ice cream? Do you get ice cream up there?
Well, yeah, it's all the same. It's
everywhere.
Plain ice cream. Ice cream's ice cream, I think. Unless someone can tell me differently, but I've tried it, I promise.
But it's still ice cream, and you get it every time.
Well, duh.
But what's been your favorite candy bar?
The Wonder Bar or Wunderbar. It might
Wunderbar.
be German, but Wonder Bar. It's like what do they call it? A peanut butter caramel experience, and it is a wonderful experience in your mouth.
What's the other one? Mr. Big?
Yeah, that one's pretty good too.
That's a solid
yep.
one.
There's
We won't comment
stuff
too much
there.
about Mr. Big.
I like them, and that is a great idea. I never, when we drove up there, I didn't really think about stopping just to have that Canadian food experience at that little grocery store. We go through the border a lot with Canada, and honestly, the last couple of years, it's been no problem. We've gotten through pretty quickly. Everybody's been really nice and accommodating. In years past, you hear some stories of people getting delayed or whatever, and we've had that in the past. Last couple of years, it's been great. And going through that one to go to the Angle, and I'm not going to say this is going to be your experience every time, but that border agent knew, okay, you're going to the Angle like everybody else that comes through this border crossing. What do you got? Blah, blah, blah. Ask us all the right questions. And then we did the check-in at Jim's Corner, which I know you don't need to stop there with the app now, right, Joe?
That's correct, yeah. So Jim's Corner, for people that don't know, when you get up to the Northwest Angle and you get into Minnesota, there's a T in the road, and it's called Jim's Corner, and there's a little hut there, a U.S. hut and a Canadian hut. And the U.S. hut is... it's got an iPad in it for checking in and such. And of course, the Canadian one has a phone that you can dial Canada Customs on your way out. But, you don't have to stop there. Now the resorts have iPads that you can, go to your resort you're staying at, order your favorite beverage and check in on the iPad, So they made it much easier. And I should say too, Brett, a lot of people that go to the Northwest Angle, will fish Ontario waters, primarily open water fishing, I guess, more so than ice fishing, but even ice fishing a little bit. And people ask, well, what are the rules to fish Ontario? And of course, you got to have an Ontario fishing license. And then if you go over by boat, if you're not touching land or anchoring or mooring or exchanging goods or services, you don't have to check in with Canada Customs, nor you don't have to, check in when you come back to the U.S. Now, you can't bring any kind of bait over into Canada from the U.S. No live, dead, frozen, anything. So most people are using plastics, or you do have the option to purchase some bait at some different, Canadian resorts and things when you slide over. When it comes to ice fishing, however, when you go fish Ontario waters ice fishing from the U.S., ice is considered land when it comes to customs definitions. So now you've touched land in Canada. So if you're going to ice fish in Ontario, you do have to call the 888 CAN pass number each morning to check in with Canada Customs. You get permission, and then you can slide into Canada and do whatever you're going to do. But then when you come back to the United States, you do need to check in with U.S. Customs again because you had touched land in Canada. It's not a big deal. Again, you go to your favorite resort you're staying at and order your favorite beverage and jump on the iPad. It wasn't always that way. It used to be that when you'd come back from ice fishing in Ontario, you had to go all the way back to Jim's Corner. And if you were staying on Oak Island, for an example, that's an extra 16 miles round trip, which, in the winter time can be a little bit more, of a process than just, driving in a vehicle or driving in a boat in the summer. So luckily we got that eliminated. Now you can just check it on an iPad and things are so much easier.
Well, Joe, if people want to plan a trip to Lake of the Woods, whether it's the Northwest Angle or the other parts of the lake, what should they do?
Yeah, hey, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.